Hello my steam-powered peeps, this is Kat, aka Kakibot, and normally I make videos about Edinburgh and Scotland, but today's video is about a bit of a journey. It's about a journey down to London, but it's not actually going to be about London. It's going to be specifically about the train ride, which is because there are so many ways of getting you from Edinburgh to London, and taking the train is one of my favorites, and specifically we are going to be taking the first class today with the LNER railway. Yes, I said that right. Yeah, and I guess that the main point of this video is going to be to show you all the little details of what that ride is like and if it's worth it, because it is quite pricey. I think that the ride down to London cost us £90 per one person, and the ride back is £80. So compared to an airplane, which with a bag will cost you about £100 there and back, you know, this is quite pricey. But you can also go the non-first class, and that will cost you about £70 if you kind of like know when to go and you're flexible. The train ride will take about 4.5 hours, 5.5 max, depending on which train you're on. Obviously, sometimes when you want to save money, you might also be able to do like a kind of a double up, like to do like one train and another with a change. That sometimes seems to be a good way of saving money. But today, again, we are here for you to make your own decision and to make an educated one. Let's go and see what this ride is going to be like. Yes. Your starting point is likely to be Waverley Station. I recommend getting maybe about 10-15 minutes of extra time, because it's good to pick up a backup snack or a coffee for the ride. Plus, as this is usually the train's first stop, you can often start boarding from about 10 minutes prior to the departure and get all settled and comfy. The first class coach has a 2-1 layout. There are a couple of seats facing each other, and the rest is their usual twin seating style. The tables are generously sized in all seats, but not foldable. I gotta say, the seats in first class are really wide and comfortable, and all of them have their own power outlets. There is supposedly Wi-Fi on the train, and LNER really likes to make this like a big selling point, but both this time and last time I had absolutely no success connecting to it. Even when you do, the connection essentially copies availability of mobile service, therefore can be really spotty. The first hour or so of your trip is probably the nicest when it comes to views. You will be able to see a lot of the coast and also get some beautiful views around Berwick-upon-Tweed. For us, the weather was kind of meh and misty on the day we traveled, but trust me, in person these are very enjoyable views. So the food menu changes depending on when in the day you travel. If you travel in the morning, you will be asked about your breakfast choice. I always go for the bacon butty. I don't know, it's like getting tomato juice on an airplane for me. Somehow the train just makes it taste better. There is a generous number of choices though, including a veggie panini and porridge. There's also fruit and biscuits if you just want a lighter, tinier nibble. The coffee seems unlimited at first, but you will realistically get to have 2 cups, maybe 3, all throughout your 5-hour ride, and they are quite small as well. Upside, they now offer oat milk. The portions of food are also on the smaller side, so again, coming back to the tip, get yourself a little train ride snack of your own, and maybe also bring a bucket of coffee if you're that way inclined, like me. Later on, you will also be offered lunch. This might feel like it comes right after your breakfast, and you might be feeling like you don't quite want lunch yet, but you should really ask for your sandwich right away, because it can be really hard to get hold of it later in your journey. The one that you feel like having might be out, and also after the train kind of visits the last stop before London, the staff just honestly stops coming around and taking care of you. The bathrooms are usually very nice at the start of the journey, but as soon as the train leaves Waverley, the entropy takes over. As time progresses, the bathrooms just get wetter and messier, and I always hope it's just the water from the hand washing rather than other fluids. Speaking of splashing, the Azuma trains, which are supposedly designed to copy Japanese Shinkansen trains, are sleeker and newer feeling than the older fleet, but definitely do not expect them to give you the smooth experience of a Japanese bullet train. This is still the same old wobbly journey as you remember from the past. On your way back, we took advantage of the first-class lounge at King's Cross Station. It's a pretty basic space, but when it's not super busy, it can be a good spot to sit down and get some work done, and you get access to free snacks and coffee. On this journey, we sat on the other side than last time, facing each other on the single seat side. This was really nice, especially considering the train was quite full, but in the first class, you don't quite perceive the fullness of the train the same as when you're in the economy class. Unfortunately, the busyness of the train meant that some people had serious issues finding space for their luggage. We were okay, our luggage was kind of medium-sized, so we were able to fit it above our heads. Excitingly, this journey offered a different menu than the last time. This was the dish menu, promising some warm meals. But to my chagrin, the previous journey this train took was full of hungry travelers, and there were only 2 meals available from the whole menu, the veggie curry and the steak and ale stew. I did quite enjoy this meal, just found it quite small. We were told more sandwiches would be brought on board in Newcastle, but we were never actually offered any. We travelled from sunny England to Scotland covered in har, once again making it impossible to get good enough footage of Berwick upon Tweed for you. I guess you will just have to take this journey for yourself and see that beautiful town with your own eyeballs. Okay, so we took you on the journey down south and then back and told you everything there is to know about the experience. And now we're gonna sit down and talk about if we think it's worth it. Of course, there's the caveat of it still being a bit pandemic-y outside. Less so than it used to be, but yeah, even though I can see things kind of going back to normal, I still feel like the experience, especially in the first class, is not quite the same as it used to be a couple of years ago, so keep that in mind when you're watching this video. To be honest, I think that a lot of the things that I disliked about this journey and that I thought went wrong didn't seem to be all that connected to the pandemic, but sometimes, you know, you just can't tell. Them running out of things that I feel like with the first class tickets I have paid for, or like the Wi-Fi not working, I think that just shouldn't be the case at any point, so that's always a bummer when that happens, and it wasn't the first time either. Last time when we traveled in September, the Wi-Fi also wasn't working. So I guess my advice would be, if you're buying the first class ticket, don't think of it as like you're treating yourself to this amazing all-inclusive luxury. You're just minimizing the potential horribleness of traveling by train. I still think it's the best way of traveling down to London, but yeah, it can be very expensive in first class, and it is kind of worth sitting down and thinking, do I want to spend that extra money on all these luxuries that might not even happen? And yeah, I think that for us this time it was worth it because, again, like, we're just kind of getting out of the pandemic, and sometimes it's nice not having that many people surrounding you on these busy trains. You know, this was a busy train in the sort of holiday Easter period, so it was nice being on a coach that's not like fully packed with people, just like partially packed with people. It was also our anniversary trip, so we thought, you know, let's treat ourselves, and it's nice to get all that free coffee and alcohol. I'm not gonna say no to that. You know, it was a nice way of treating ourselves. So my final verdict for you who travel, possibly not for like a special occasion and not, you know, during a pandemic, and you're not that worried about being surrounded by 50 people instead of 35, I think that first class is still worth it if you're traveling alone, because I think that only in first class you get those single seats. I think that's a really nice way of traveling. If you're traveling for 5 hours alone, you want to get some work done, even though the internet might not work. If you download some stuff to work on, it's still, you know, a very viable option. If you're traveling in more than one person, I think that the second class, the economy class, is just fine, because honestly, I walked through the economy class on my way to a free toilet, and I gotta say that I thought, you know, it looks fairly similar. It's just that the seating is like 2-2 and not 2-1, so you don't get those single seats, which means that if you travel in a couple, you still get kind of that sense of like, you get this like personal space between the two of you. All of the seats have a little table, you know, you have access to windows. It's still a very enjoyable ride. It's still much better than flying, in my opinion. It's still much better than taking the coach, which seems to be like extreme traveler sort of choice. Like, that's if you like super duper want to save money and see many English towns that you've never heard about before, then you might want to take the coach, but I would never ever recommend doing that. I think that flights are maybe a good option for someone who travels without any luggage, but if you're going down to London and you want to do some shopping, like when we go to London, we always shop a lot for food. We bought a lot of Japanese milk bread, so we essentially had not only our main pieces of luggage, but also some extra shopping bags. And on a train, that's just not an issue. There's a lot of space for these smaller things. There's not really that much space for large bags, but you know, it's doable, I think, unless you travel with like a humongous, really big, like a week-long trip suitcase. If you do, then maybe come into the train as soon as possible, and then, you know, that might guarantee you a better chance of getting a spot for your humongous suitcase that you, for some reason, you have to travel with. You weird person. Okay, yeah, so that was it. That was my summary of what I think about the LNER journey down south in first class. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. I think that for me it's always really helpful if I'm about to spend a larger chunk of money. It's really nice to watch someone else's experience and kind of visualize what I'm getting for the money I'm going to be paying. So hopefully I was able to give that to you today, and as always, let me know in the comments below if you've ever taken this journey, and if you've ever taken first class, and if you think it's overpriced, and if your internet worked, because I am genuinely curious about that at this point. It seems like the whole of 2021 and 2022, the internet just has left the building / train. Okay. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram on KakiBot and KakiBlog for my illustrations and merch, and for my photos of Edinburgh and stories about my life here. And also, if you like that merch that you could see on KakiBot, there's an Etsy store down in the doobly-doo, and it's filled with Scottish themed goods. Okay, that is it from me, and I shall see you soon.